As promised, joining us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline to get more into the Sixers, Ben Simmons, and more NBA. He is Bryan Oringher. You can follow him on Twitter at Scout with Bryan. Also, you want to get all the insights he has on his Patreon channel, Scout with Bryan, because, listen, for the $5 that you would spend on the Patreon, you're not just getting a ton of great information about Bryan Oringher. You know what you're also getting? You're also getting his picks every night. And I'm telling you right now, if you take his picks every night that he does on his Patreon, it's going to pay for the Patreon subscription. So you're getting great information and you're going to make some money and it's going to pay for itself. So he joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Bryan, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm great, Josh. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you jumping on because I'm losing my mind with some of this Ben Simmons stuff. And I think the title of your latest podcast, Scout with Bryan Pod, when you said, the Ben Simmons BS, you're getting to the point where you're just dropping curse words in the middle of the podcast because you're so frustrated. And I think the biggest thing about the Ben Simmons thing that frustrates me is that I think people have this attitude that just because he was the first overall pick, he's supposed to fit into this little box that they have created that they want him to be. Because at the end of the day, Bryan, it's not that he's not a good basketball player. He's a really, really good basketball player. But because he doesn't fit into this little mold that people want and these expectations that people put on him, that makes him all of a sudden not good.
He's a great basketball player. He's not just a really good basketball player. He's a great basketball player who can't do one thing. And that one thing is shooting the ball, which, yes, obviously is pretty important. But, you look at the other guys in that draft. I mean, Brandon Ingram, Buddy Hield. I mean, how much winning have they done in the playoffs? Those guys obviously much better shooters, much better, at making shots. But people forget there are a million things that go into winning basketball games. And Ben does so many of those things at an incredibly high level, better than those guys, and we drool over these guys like Buddy Hield that, their teams are giving up 130 points every night. And we don't appreciate that Ben Simmons might be the best defensive player in the league for a team that's the number one seed in the East. I mean, yeah, it's mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense.
Also, the other thing, Bryan, is I talked about this before you came on. You look at the other guys on his team. Tobias Harris is having a career year efficiency-wise. Embiid is having a career year shooting efficiency-wise. Seth Curry is shooting the lights out. Shake Milton is basically a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. So to me, why do I want to take the scoring opportunities out of those guys' hands and tell Ben to go score? Like, no, Ben, keep passing the ball because all those guys are making so many shots.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's like, Giannis, okay, Giannis has gotten to the point where he can make a three every once in a while, shoots 31% from there. But does anyone give a crap when Giannis shoots threes? Nobody cares. The other team is doing jumping jacks when he shoots the ball. When I'm scouting a team, if I could dare him to take 9 threes a game like he was in the playoffs, that lost them the series against Miami. If you're not good at it, don't do it, quite frankly. Like, I don't understand why we applaud, like I said, guys like Giannis that just are doing it, but it's not making any impact on the game because they don't make them, versus Ben, who knows himself, knows he's not good at it, obviously, but focuses all his efforts on playing defense, creating shots for those other guys whose efficiencies are exploding, like you said, and averaging 8 assists every single game of his career, basically, because he's a super smart basketball player who knows how to contribute to winning. And, yeah, I think he's doing a great job of that, obviously, this season. And it's just a shame that one thing that he can't do, obviously, just takes up so much headspace for people that they're unable to appreciate the other 99 things he does really, really well.
Bryan Oringher joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Scout with Bryan. It's Bryan with a Y. Also, you want to get on his Patreon so you get all of the video breakdowns and insights. I mean, Bryan, what you had before the NBA draft was some of the best breakdowns I've ever seen. If people want to see those, they need to get on your Patreon because people will understand a lot better about the guys who are playing this year as rookies because of patreon.com/Scott with Bryan joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Now, I will tell you, Bryan, the one thing that frustrates me about Ben Simmons at times, because I don't hear enough people talk about this, and you can tell me if I'm being too reactionary to this, because maybe in here in the Philadelphia area, we're a little too close to the situation, okay? I get frustrated with the turnovers at times. I feel like there are times that he commits turnovers that don't make any sense to me, and I would love to see him clean that up because there was a 3-game stretch this year where he was averaging 6 turnovers a game. Now, last night he cleaned it up a lot more, but to me, I feel like that's really the precipice. If he can clean up the turnovers, I think his game goes to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, obviously, 4, I think he's around 4 a game turnover-wise. It's a little bit higher than he's been traditionally. I think ideally you'd want to cut that back down at least to what it was the last couple of years, around 3.5, maybe chip away at it a little more. But yeah, I think part of it certainly is a factor of having a new coach, a totally new offensive system. The stuff Dave Yeager kind of has them running, leading the offense is very different than Brett Brown's stuff. And yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, obviously, I've discounted the jumper just because I said there's plenty of ways to be effective even without it. But, obviously all else equal, it would be very helpful to be able to score outside of 5 feet. And there are some times where he kind of gets stuck in the air or stuck in an area wide open and he won't shoot the ball and ends up throwing it away. And yeah, that can certainly be very frustrating at times. But, it's also aggravating when people say, oh, yeah, it hasn't gotten any better offensively. I mean, even if you look just at the shot, first of all, that's not true because, I mean, look at free throws. He has gone up from 56 to 60 to 62 to 63. Giannis has gone in the opposite direction. That's important that he's making more free throws. Even the threes, he was over 17 his first 2 years in the league. Now at least he has a chance of throwing one in every once in a blue moon. So yeah, I mean, even the shot has gotten a tiny bit better, but yeah, I mean, like I said, people don't realize that he's also gotten better finishing. He's gotten better with his handle, with his floor vision. All those things have improved, even if the shot obviously is nowhere close to really being game ready.
Now, Brian, you're a non-hot take guy. You're a no BS guy. So I'm going to ask you about something that is getting hot take steam with the Sixers. Is it legitimate that Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate? Yeah,
absolutely. I think both of them, to be honest, right now have to at least be in the conversation. I think anytime you're the best team in a conference, you should have multiple guys who are getting mentioned for that. And yeah, I mean, Joel's been great. He's anchored the defense. He's scoring kind of the best, most efficiently that he has. And it was cool to see him also talk about how much he's loved playing with Ben this season, how much fun they're having together. But yeah, I mean, having Tobias back, looking like his old self is great. Having Shake, like you said, might be in the running for most improved. Maxey might be in the running for rookie of the year. I mean, they've got a lot of exciting pieces, and Doc's I think done a great job so far getting them to play an exciting brand of basketball.
Brian, for those who don't know, you were a video coordinator and advanced scout in the NBA with the Wizards and Hawks and Raptors. Can you touch on a little bit, something you touched on a little bit in your podcast, but I want to ask you a little more about it here, and that is, by the way, Scout with Brian is the podcast. Doc Rivers' staff, Sam Cassell, Dave Yeager, he's got some legitimate guys on this staff. Can you touch on the importance of having a quality staff for an NBA team?
Yeah, tremendously important. I mean, I think, Doc's been a guy who always has kind of had it divided by like offensive coordinator, which I think is Yeager, defensive coordinator, which I think is Dan Burke, I believe this year, who was with the Pacers for a long time and is a brilliant defensive mind. And, Sam, I think kind of just oversees some things. And I know there's a couple other names I'm even forgetting who are pretty good coaches on that staff. But yeah, I think it's a much better staff overall than he had last season with the Clippers. I like and respect Brett Brown. I think he did a good job for a long time there. But when he lost Lloyd Pierce, he lost some of his assistants. That staff at times was kind of depleted and didn't have a lot of brain power, at least really respected around the league. So yeah, I mean, I think Yeager's definitely a head coach. Sacramento probably still wishes they didn't fire him, and you see how much things have fallen apart since they hired Luke Walton. And Sammy's obviously a has tremendous experience and, is a good voice to have in Ben Simmons' ears. And, I think it's a good group that obviously is getting through to those guys right now.
Yeah, Sacramento chose the assistant GM over a winning head coach. It shows you where that franchise is going.
Clueless.
It really is bad. Bryan Oringher joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Again, at Scout with Bryan for all your NBA coverage. And make sure you sign up for his Patreon. The Patreon will pay for itself as long as you take all of his picks. What are you, 21-10 now on the NBA picks?
Yep, 21-10.
Yeah, so your picks will pay for the Patreon $5 subscription. So that's all you got to know, right?
Much more than that, even. Yeah, I should be charging $20 a month.
So Bryan, I want to ask you a couple other NBA things. I want to go to the Nets because, to me, the Nets situation is an amazing experimentation in basketball psychology and human psychology, because you have three very different dudes. And what makes it also interesting to me is that we know that Durant loves the game of basketball, right? We know that Harden's a gamer, and he's really evolved his game from when he got to Houston to what he is now. But as you mentioned on the pod, Kyrie Irving is a wild card. I believe that Kyrie Irving doesn't love basketball. He loves what basketball can do for him. So how do you think that situation will play out if Kyrie isn't bought in the way he needs to be? Because we know Durant and Harden, they're gamers. But what happens if Kyrie doesn't get bought in?
If Kyrie doesn't get bought in, honestly, I hope he retires or something mid-season, so at least they can, put all their energy into KD and Harden, figuring out how to have a winning team with them, which, was working pretty well through the two games that they played alone. Obviously, since Kyrie's come back, it fell apart in the two games against Cleveland. And, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I do think he likes basketball. He's obviously tremendously gifted at it, but, he kind of sees himself as a Mother Teresa type character who, it's admirable. He does a lot of good things in the community, has a lot of other interests. But, like I said on the podcast, right now you're getting paid max money to be a basketball player. And so you are literally contractually obligated to do that job, and you can't be disappearing for a week in the middle of the season. So, yeah, I think he, clearly is the biggest question mark, and his level of buy-in will really determine things, their success. And yeah, there's no question they can outscore anybody. They can put up 130, 135 points every night. But, if you give up 140, it's not going to win enough games. So it's a long season. They still got time to figure it out. But, Kyrie to me is who the heck knows what's going to happen with him.
Yeah, and Bryan, to me, it's even more important because people are saying, oh, the Nets are the favorite now in the East. Well, yeah, I mean, you get a couple MVP winners on the roster. It's great. But, Bryan, they gave up so much to get Harden. They basically imploded half of their depth. They gave away their entire future when we heard the Nets do that before. Wasn't that like 6 years ago when they did that? So it's like at some point it's like, okay, you have Harden, Durant, and Kyrie, but who else is on the floor? Like, you're going to tell me that if one of those guys goes down with an injury that Joe Harris is going to go out there and put up 20?
Don't discount Joe Harris, because that guy could shoot the crap out of the ball. He's pretty good. But, no, I get what you're saying. And yeah, I think clearly the depth is a big issue. I think, most glaringly to me is like Reggie Perry, who I think was on like a two-way, is kind of like their backup center now. He's I don't think ready for that kind of role. Obviously losing Dinwiddie for probably the season was a huge loss. And yeah, like you mentioned, they traded probably the best center on their roster. They traded LeVert, who obviously is not playing now and had the scare that thankfully they discovered. But yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the most talented scorers in the league. So, it's a tough job for Sean Marks. And I think he's got to find a way to maybe around the deadline or in the coming weeks, add at least a couple defensive-minded guys, because right now they don't really, Bruce Brown might be the best defender. They don't really have anybody that really buys in on that end. They need another center. DeAndre Jordan has been a guy that's gotten DNP coaches' decisions in the last few years, and now he's supposed to play 30 minutes a game and be your starting center. I mean, it's a tall ask of him. So yeah, depth is definitely an issue. But you know, with the level of talent they have, there's not going to be excuses. You still absolutely need to at least be in the Eastern Conference Finals in my book.
For more insights on the NBA, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Scout with Bryan. Sign up for his Patreon, just $5 a month. Get you access to everything you could ever need on the NBA. Also, the Scout with Bryan podcast. That's Bryan with a Y. Former NBA advanced scout video coordinator, worked with the Wizards, Hawks, and Raptors. Joined us here on 97.3 ESPN. As all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Bryan, always appreciate the times and the insights. Keep up the great work, man.
Appreciate it, Josh. Thanks again for having me.